Welcome everyone to this conversation of change where we have Flo, the managing director of PyroCCS, the Biochar company, and the co-founder and partner of Terra, Preta Impact Innovations. Flo is a German social entrepreneur based out of Shillong, Meghalaya, India. He has partnered with IIM Calcutta Innovation Park to head the Prime Startup Hub, the state-run entrepreneurship program initiated by the Planning Department, Government of Meghalaya. He's also delivered several projects and startups in medtech, clean tech, and agriculture in India over the last few years, and currently is focused on sustainability venture building with his startup Terra Preta Impact Innovations. Flo is also promoting sustainable food forest based on permaculture to facilitate healthy nutrition and conservation of biodiversity in India, enabled by technology. Welcome, Flo. We'll jump right into the questions.
Hi, Davishna. Hi, everyone. Great to be here.
Could you please tell us what a typical day looks like for you as a managing director, and if you can elaborate more of the work that you do?
That's a good question. Actually, I think I'll not be able to answer that as such because there's no typical day. We are a startup. We are, our company has been incorporated now half a year ago in India, and together with our headquarters in Germany, it's around a year old. So obviously, as you can imagine, at this point in time, I'm everything from the fancy managing director down to the person who marks the accounts, who calls everyone up who is after meetings. So my day is actually quite interesting in terms of it's every day different. It's pretty much a 50-50 kind of role between traveling as well as working from Shillong. So we work across India. At this point in time, we do a lot in Maharashtra, so I get to travel a lot. We also have a joint venture partner in Maharashtra, so setting up everything at this point in time is one of my main activities. Everything from company establishment, bank account to getting the joint venture agreements in place, building the joint venture. So it's very, very different every day for me. And what we basically do is we work in the field of carbon sequestration, and to just describe the process that we are following. In the end, we are taking waste biomass, woody waste biomass, that can be everything from wood chips, bamboo, coconut shells, any kind of nut shells, cashew shells, coffee husks, paddy straw, branches, twigs. And what we do is we run this through a process called pyrolysis, and the outcome of this pyrolysis is what we call biochar. So biochar is a form of charcoal, but it's not charcoal that you know for burning or for firing. It's a charcoal that is a very stable form of carbon. So this stable form of carbon is stable over hundreds and thousands of years, and if you put it in soil, then it actually sequesters carbon. So we are sequestering carbon, and from this carbon sequestration, we are generating carbon credits. Okay, and this is basically what our business is based on, and we do a lot of let's say good stuff around it, because if you put biochar in soil, it's a very, very potent natural fertilizer or soil amendment, if you want it that way. So it's like a sponge. It drags in nutrients. It drags in water. It gives microbes a space to live as well. So there's a lot of research. Biochar is nothing new. It's thousands and thousands of years old. The South Americans have used this 3,000-4,000 years ago, and it's still making the South American soil some of the most fertile soil in the world, like the black soil or Terra Preta, what do you call it? So this is what we do, and the good thing about us is we can give this biochar for free to the farmers in India. So instead of them having to buy chemical fertilizers, we give them a natural kind of option, which helps them to increase their yield. And there is a lot of research around it in India as well, and it's a proven kind of soil amendment. And that's basically our thing. And we finance our whole business through the carbon credits. And at this point in time, we are setting up our first 2 plants in Nashik, in Maharashtra. where we work with municipal solid waste, twigs, branches, and everything. And we already have 2 plants in Namibia up and running, where we are working with invasive bushes.
That sounds very interesting, and I can only imagine the challenges you face on a day-to-day basis.
That's all right. That's part of the game. That's part of the fun.
So you co-founded Terra Preta Impact Innovations, which supports EU-based businesses and organizations with impact project development and sustainability-related venture creation in India. Could you please share more about this?
So in the end, I think there's a strong will of European MSMEs specifically, or rather SMEs, that want to go above and beyond this typical kind of, okay, I put up my subsidiary in India and I sell the product that I'm making in Europe, in Germany, wherever it is, in India as well. So what we are doing is we work with these SMEs and also with some multinational companies to help them understand, okay, what are the social business kind of opportunities in India? I can give you some example, very, very simple one. We've been working with a company that is manufacturing plastic goods in Europe. And what they were looking for is, can we source plastic, waste plastic specifically, responsibly from India? So the kind of project we came up in the end was, let's develop a project where we work with rag pickers in a metro in India. But, not only, let's say, buy the waste plastic from them and maybe give them a little more money for it, but, build a whole ecosystem around it, right? Create groups, give their children education, provide them with healthcare, provide them with a sort of insurance, to really look at it in a more holistic way, but still a profitable business. So at this point in time, this is set up. And in the end, this business is running as a profitable business, providing these rag pickers with all the services that I just mentioned, while at the same time giving the European company the kind of input materials they need to manufacture their products. Obviously, it's not possible for them to source all the requirements, but a certain percentage of the of plastics that they need for certain products is now being sourced from India sustainably, from these sources. And there's a long range of examples. There's companies who are interested to somewhat green their supply chains, or somewhat, want to ensure biodiversity compliance in their supply chains. There's a large airline who is very, very interested to work along the topic of sustainable aviation fuels, which can be created from biomass inputs as well. So we are specifically with Terra Preta looking at these angles. Where can we build businesses that are profitable, social businesses that at the same time do good. So again, that can be, do good for the environment, do good for people. We are quite open, and this is where we have established us, I think, quite well over the last few years. And I think more and more interest is coming from the European side as well.
That's really interesting. I think this is, you probably are, I don't know if you're the first one, but for me to hear about trash being sent out of India as opposed to trash coming into India, usually you keep hearing.
It's no more trash. So I think now
Yes,
it's a valuable raw material, and I think this is right. There's a lot of opportunities. There's opportunities in e-waste. There's opportunities everywhere. It's just you need to have a partner, and the good thing is I think more people are willing to do that. Who is willing to listen, who is open to suggestions, and who is open to trying something as well. Because again, most of these models are new. Most of these models will not be able to provide you with the amount of let's say, raw materials you might require in the beginning. So it does require a certain amount of investment, but it's what we call patient capital, right? You might not drive returns within the first, second, third, fourth, or fifth year, but then you can ensure, okay, this is really a project that gives me as a MSME what I need. It helps me also serve the SDGs, At the same time, it's something that's sustainable. It's not a project where I need to pump in money over the next 2 decades, which is just loss making for me. But it's a project that really, helps me as a business as well. So it's a win-win for everyone involved.
Absolutely. Yeah. Could you share your views on how early stage rural entrepreneurs and social entrepreneurs in the sector of agriculture, food processing, handicraft contribute to sustainable economic development and social progress in their communities?
Yeah, I'm happy to. See, over the last 2 years, just as a background, over the last 3 years, I've been working closely, as you also said in my introduction, I've been working closely with the government of Meghalaya. And we've built up a program called Prime, which is the entrepreneurship development program of the government here. So I've been working very closely with the Commissioner Secretary Planning on building this up as a program. We started from scratch at the beginning of COVID, and we started obviously with incubation. We went into designing state funding vehicles. We went into building incubators in academic institutes. I mean, imagine there was not a single functional incubator in the state of Meghalaya in an academic institute 3 years ago. So we really had to start from scratch, and in a state like Meghalaya, which has its geographical challenges, it's extremely remote, it's in the foothills of the Himalayas, it's, infrastructure, connectivity is a huge challenge. The main kind of businesses that you find here is food processing businesses, businesses that are somewhat agri-allied, handicrafts, tourism as well. So probably, when I actually exited the project 2 months ago, but when we were still working in the project, around 80% of the entrepreneurs would have been classified in this kind of category. And Meghalaya being a state where, don't let me lie, probably around 70% of the population lives in rural areas. We only have 2 major agglomerations, that is Shillong and that is Tura, but both together have maybe a population of 2 lakhs, and the state has a total population of 36 lakhs. So most of the people are actually living outside in the rural areas and working in businesses, in food processing and everything. But the nice thing is, everywhere across the world, people are fighting, or we need to find startups that are having a good impact, entrepreneurs that have a good impact. So here, that's always there, because it's very fascinating. These tribal entrepreneurs, mostly, they work without having to think twice. They work very sustainably. First of all, Meghalaya as such, agriculture is comparatively natural based still. So obviously it's not like Sikkim where the whole state is organic state, but there's many farmers who still work according to traditional practices. Very little or no kind of chemical fertilizers are being used. So obviously entrepreneurs that work with these farmers naturally have sustainable sourcing, right? And the entrepreneurs as such, these are not the entrepreneurs that want to fight over every rupee. These are not the entrepreneurs that try to put the farmer down to 2 rupees for a kg of tomatoes or something. That's not the kind of mindset for them. It's local sourcing, so obviously for them community is important, right? So they ensure fair pricing. At the same time, whenever there's an opportunity for livelihoods, for job opportunities, most of the opportunities will be unskilled. It's very difficult to find skilled labor in Meghalaya. So these entrepreneurs take the responsibility. They pick some youngsters from their village. They train them from scratch. They go through the whole difficult process of training them. Obviously, if you take someone without experience, there's a high chance they drop out. They realize, okay, this is not for me, right? But that's the kind of entrepreneurs you have here. Despite all the challenges that you have here, it's practically impossible to send a parcel from one of the rural areas to one of the metros in India, right? So these guys have to take one additional step in delivery as well. They have to send everything to Shillong, and from Shillong it can go out. Even from Shillong, it takes ages to reach other parts of India. If I order something from Amazon here in Meghalaya, it takes around 7 to 10 days to reach. So you can imagine how much time it takes for something that the entrepreneurs make to go, to reach the other places in India, right? So it's a huge challenge, but nevertheless, these entrepreneurs take up these challenges. You might think, okay, you have these challenges, so now you should look at profit maximization, but they don't. So they still have this social angle. They look after the community, they look after nature, and that is something that fascinates me a lot. And again, this is not isolated to Meghalaya. I've seen this across the Northeast. I've also been working in with entrepreneurs in Arunachal and Mizoram, Assam to a certain extent as well. And I think whenever there's entrepreneurs who come from rural areas, who know of the importance of natural resources, who have not grown up in a metro, because you have to be honest, people who are from metros tend to be a little bit out of touch with nature. And I feel this is something that I very much appreciate and also admire about these rural entrepreneurs. Despite all of these challenges, despite all of the problems they have to solve on an everyday basis, they still are very much aligned with what is sustainability, what we call sustainability. And I feel if we have more of these entrepreneurs, we don't even have to look so much into sustainability anymore, because it's anyhow their natural mode of operations.
No, great, thank you. Just going back to your educational background, you've majored in international project management. How has your education and training equipped you to address the pressing issues of sustainability and climate action?
Not at all. If I'm being very frank, not at all. Let's say it gives you a structure in your head, which can be dangerous to a certain extent. If you work in rural areas, if you work with people, sticking to some kind of academic structures in your head, I think is always a big danger, because somewhat you try to fit people into structures, you try to fit people into boxes, but that's not working, to be honest. So for me, my educational background has helped me a lot in terms of getting international exposure. So when I was studying, my first semester of studies I actually did at the IIT Madras in Chennai, and another semester I also did in Indonesia, and this helped me a lot to understand, intercultural kind of factors, intercultural communication, dealing with other cultures, and obviously, again, project management. When you build a startup, it's crucial, to have solid project management in place. Also, the program I built with the government of Meghalaya, nothing works without project management. So having a background in it, or having an idea what is it all about, how can I, what kind of tools can I use, is always helpful. But you soon realize, the typical 80-20 rule that you have, probably 20% of what you have learned will help you with 80% of your work or the outcome you want to achieve. And this is exactly what I do. I pick and choose whatever works well. The rest, you don't have the time to implement it as well. Project management tends to focus a lot on documentation, a lot of paperwork. And if you work in rural areas, if you work in social impact, it's more important that you work with humans than that you work in front of your laptop on Excel files. So I make this kind of trade-off in my daily work.
Very well said. Thank you. In India, entrepreneurship is on the rise, and it's grown significantly in the last 5 years. What are your views on climate entrepreneurship ecosystem and its future? What are the challenges faced by these entrepreneurs, and what advice would you have to somebody who's looking to join this space?
See, it's not an easy space, because in the end, the main topic, obviously, for many startups to grow is finance and sustainability. At this point in time, the whole or big chunk of the, let's say, climate projects or climate mitigation sector is still based on the NGO kind of model. You give me a chunk of money, I'll use up that money. If money is over, project is over, right? So obviously, thankfully now, a lot of these projects, they're also looking after long-term sustainability. But for long-term sustainability, you'll always have to have a funding component. And I feel specifically in the climate sector, that is one of the main challenges. You know, the model we follow with Pyrox is quite straightforward, and you know, we reach profitability within 2 years, less than 2 years, right? Because you know, we have technology, we have everything in place. But if you talk about more, let's say, nature-based solutions, so people planting forests, you know, I've been working with permaculture and food forests. It's something that can achieve absolutely fantastic results, but these results are not there within 1 year. These results start showing within 5 years, and you'll have the wow effect maybe after 6 or 7 years, right? And our kind of funding system around the world is not made for these horizons, you know, where you have to invest for the first 5 years and you'll not see a lot of output. You can just sit in front of let's say, fruit tree and see it, you know, growing 1 or 2 centimeters every month. So in the end, that's the biggest challenge for the climate sector at this point in time. You know, obviously you have all these fancy technologies that are coming up, direct air capture for carbon and everything, which requires millions and millions of dollars. And they are able to mobilize these funds as well because they can show this kind of profitability. But I feel if we really want to have a impact, also widespread impact, we need to figure out a way, how can we focus more on nature-based solutions? How can we make planting trees, you know, profitable? How can we make, you know, planting food forests? How can we ensure local supply of nutrition, fruits, vegetables, right? And that's the biggest challenge at this point in time for most entrepreneurs that work in the climate space. How do I get the funding? How do I convince funders, you know, to give me money for something that will, you know, have outputs only after 6-7 years, right? Obviously, you have models like agroforestry, you know, which tend to be profitable a little bit earlier. But in the end, at this point in time, again, there is patient capital available. There is funders which are more, you know, on a kind of you know, kind of do good or you know, kind of model where they say, okay, I give you the money, I don't expect much of returns, but that's more philanthropy. So in the end, entrepreneurs need to figure out a way, how can they make a nature-based solution? How can they make their business in the climate space profitable? How can they put a solid business model to it? And that's probably the biggest challenge around it. And I think that's also the suggestion from my end to entrepreneurs that work in the climate space. Always look at it from a perspective of a very strict investor. You know, when you build your business model, you know, obviously, I think there's no doubt. All of these entrepreneurs do good work. They do good. They serve many SDGs. But when it comes to due diligence, when it comes down to an investor really evaluating, will I give this person money or not? It all comes down to the figures, and let's say 80-90%, right? So if you're an entrepreneur in the climate space, look at profitability, look at sustainability, and also build models how you can showcase these to your investors. Unfortunately, at this point in time, that's your best shot. And again, if you're, let's say, if you're into tree planting and you cannot show immediate profitability, build another model around it. You know, work with agrotourism, work with you know, work with the food processing sector, with the existing food processing sector in the area you want to work with. Make them sustainable, help them sell their products. You know, it's all about building a model that's all over sustainable. And then I think also these longer kind of models can work.
Well, completely agree with everything you've said. I think climate philanthropy has, you know, there's so many loopholes in it, and there's so much confusion. And yeah, thank you. So you've shared about the impact of health innovation in rural India and the role of trade fairs and partnerships. How can health startups and foreign businesses effectively contribute to addressing healthcare challenges in rural India? And what role do personal connections, trade fairs, and local partnerships play in achieving this goal?
So this is my 6th year in India, and you know, obviously, when I came initially, I did not have any partnership, any partners. I barely had any networks. I had a couple of friends which I got to know abroad. But in the end, you know, the core to, let's say, success, you know, I wouldn't say I'm successful, but you know, the core of making things happening in India is, for me, still, you know, find good people, find people you can work with, find people who have the right connect. So for me, that is, I work a lot with NGOs. I work a lot with organizations on the ground. So I spent a lot of time in my initial days in India to make this connect. I spent almost, you know, 7-8 months in villages, in rural areas. So in the end, partnerships are core to getting things done in India. So and that's also what I always preach to foreign startups, because I for the last, I think, 4 or 5 years, I've been part of an organization called German Indian Startup Exchange Program. So I volunteer there as a ambassador to basically bring the ecosystems closer together. And in this work, and also in the work that I do in the with Terra, Preta, in the social business sector, I always tell people, you know, find people that you're aligned with, find organizations that already have a good grip on the ground. That will enable you to get things done fast. And actually, that's the only way how you can get things done in India. So for me, trade fairs and all these kind of things, all opportunities where I can connect to people, are super valuable. And specifically in, obviously, if you work in rural India, access to rural India is one of the most challenging things. You know, obviously, people will always welcome you. There's no doubt about it. But if it gets down to business, if it gets down to getting things done, it's a whole different topic. It requires trust, right? So I just give you one example, and this is the medtech kind of innovation or health tech innovation that you referred to. I've been working with a German startup, and I've been helping them to somewhat look at India, because actually what they have been doing, they have developed a device which allows them to measure iron deficiency anemia on the lower lip. So you have a sensor, you hold the sensor against the lower lip. There's no pricking of blood or anything. And within 60 seconds, and now with shorter as well, this device will tell you whether you're iron deficient or not. And obviously in a country which has a population where 40% are iron deficient, this is India is a fantastic market for them, and it's a brilliant kind of market for them to make an impact as well. So what we've done is exactly that. We've connected them with people on the ground. We've connected them. We took them to a trade fair as well, like a few weeks ago in Delhi. And I think this gave them a whole different and more realistic picture of what they can expect in India. Obviously, India has a whole different perception when it comes to price points, when it comes to, you know, what is the expected functionality as well. So now what they've done is when we got in touch, they were actually still in the prototyping phase, not in the prototyping, but developing their prototype towards a market-ready device. So their market-ready device now has a lot of inputs that they got from the ground in India. They have actually translated it into features, and now they're just in the phase of entering the Indian market with the respective good local partners. So I think they spoke to around 120 organizations during the trade fair, which we took them, and it really helped them to align. You know, it really helped them to figure out their strategy, to figure out, okay, what do we want to do, with whom do we want to work, who can actually help us, and not only with one organizations, but, you know, maybe we can go 2-3 different channels and try out things, because their product is something completely new. It has never been there before. So there has to be a certain level of experimentation as well. And this clarity these guys have achieved now through exactly that, through networking, through finding local partners, and through that understanding the market.
That sounds really interesting. And I mean, I'm sure apart from all the other positive factors, just the amount of time saved, you know, in just getting someone's results, that whether they are iron deficient or not, and get them on subsequent medication would be great.
Absolutely, yeah. Specifically for children, for babies, you know, obviously there's a huge stigma in rural India towards pricking blood as well. So people rather not take blood samples, you know, lactating mothers. So it's a sector which can have a huge impact, and really, you know, so that's why I'm really enthusiastic about this product as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. Now to a more personal question. Could you please share your journey from Germany to India and what's been your experience so far living in the Northeast?
See, as I already said, my journey in India started with exchange semester here, and actually I was struggling a lot during the exchange semester. You know, as you will understand, you know, Chennai, 42 degrees, 44 degrees, no AC, steel beds in student accommodation. You have monkeys in the middle of the night who decide to rattle your windows and everything. So I was struggling a lot in this first 6 months, but then I said, okay, this cannot be the kind of end of it. So I came back also for internship in this a year later. And that was in the field of consultancy. So I worked for a consultancy that helped German businesses with their market entry in India. So I got a lot of background when it comes to that during my internship. Then, you know, obviously went back to Germany, graduated after my studies, started my first own startup in the Middle East. In the Middle East, always you have a lot of contact with India as well. Obviously, we had suppliers there, we had customers there. So regularly visited, and then went back to Germany after this and started another startup, failed with the startup. And this is when I had my little bit of a, let's say, attitude alignment or mental alignment. I was starting to think, okay, what do I want out of life? And this is when the shift towards more social business, social entrepreneurship came. And when I decided, okay, let me just go to India. You know, I somewhat had a really good experience after all. It really shaped me a lot during the year I spent, during a little less than a year during my studies there. I loved traveling in India, had the opportunity to do that. So I went back and really just went, you know, I without much of a plan. I had a couple of friends there. Obviously, I stayed with them. They took me around. So I spent a good amount of time traveling, specifically rural India, what I was mentioning. I spent, you know, 7-8 months in rural Rajasthan just to understand, hey, how does the whole thing work? Or what doesn't work? You know, what is the culture? You know, what is the attitude of the people? And obviously, you know, it was mind-blowing. It was probably difficult for a European. I mean, I'm also from a village. I'm from a village of 50 people in Germany. But then obviously, you know, going to a village in India is a whole different matter as well. There might be more people, but it's, you know, a fantastic experience I had. So I made this experience, started to get smaller projects in biogas and solar kind of projects and consulting projects along the line of biodiversity, forestry. So I did that, and obviously, you know, 2020, I had the opportunity to, you know, start something here in the Northeast with the project that the government of Meghalaya was doing. So, and the Northeast itself is like, you know, a whole different world. You know, the food is different, the people are different, the culture is different, traditions are different, geography is different, climate is different. So literally everything is different, but that's what makes it also very fascinating to me. I mean, I love living here. Anyhow, I think that's a bigger misunderstanding that most people in Europe always have when I talk to them. They think India is one country, so everything is pretty much the same. And here in the Northeast, you know, I think that's even Indians have no idea about the Northeast. You know, when I talk to Indians, they say, I don't know, you know, I've never been there. You know, I know it's beautiful. I know it's beautiful nature. I know there's the good food, interesting people. But most people have never been here, and I'm really lucky to have the opportunity to experience that. And you know, I have, with the work I was doing with the government of Meghalaya, I also had the opportunity to travel rural areas, you know, to travel the most remote parts of the state of Meghalaya to really get to know what do the interiors look like, you know, not as a tourist, but really as someone working and living here, you know, who had to get things done. So that taught me a lot, and you know, I still enjoy living here. You know, obviously you don't have the amenities that Bombay has, that Delhi has. You have your constraints, you have your load shedding, you have your water issues going on, but it's a place that brings you closer to nature, and I feel for my kind of work, that's probably one of the best places to be. So I do still enjoy being here a lot. Yeah, and you know, I don't intend to leave. I obviously travel the country a lot, but having a home base here is is a good thing.
Oh, that sounds amazing. And now you've made us all miss nature, being around nature. Thank you so much for your time today, Flo. Much appreciated. It was lovely listening to you talk so passionately about entrepreneurship and the work you're doing in the Northeast.
Thank you so much. It was great being with you, and yeah, looking forward.